Hi, and welcome to CLaRI, the University of Buffalo's Center for Literacy and Reading Instruction. Today we're going to talk about some beginning analysis techniques used in NVivo9. So do me a favor and open up your NVivo project. Next thing I did is I went and I made sure I was in my sources bar and that I was within my 5838 case study. And I clicked on video session 22 and it opened up my transcription bar window with my media. The first type of analysis we're going to do, coding we're going to do is called range coding. If you go to the Analyze tab and click on range coding, you will get a range code box. Here we are going to code time spans. You'll see though that you can also play and you can code transcript rows or all of the video or all of the transcript or the entire source. I'm choosing time spans. And what this means is that if you know that there is a specific time span of video that you'd like to code with a specific node, you write the time span in here. For example, I'm looking at this, 1:17 dash 1:32. Then it asks you for your specific code. So which code do you want to use? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a test code. So I'm going to close this real quick, jump into nodes, right click, new node. I'm going to call it my test node. This way I can delete it when we're done and I will not have changed my case study coding structure at all. Okay. So back to sources again. I'm in here. I'm going to click to edit. Now that I've clicked to edit, my range code has highlighted. I'm in Analyze. I'm back to where we started. 1:17 to 1:32. And I am going to choose my test node. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to code. You can also choose multiple time spans. So let's go 3:31 to 4:00, and then you comma, space, 9:30 to 14:40. I'm going to select my test item again. OK. And I'm going to code. The last thing you can do is you can code for multiple codes. So what I've just said is that the following time spans, there's two of them, should be coded with these two selected items, which I've chosen here, potential dataset and test node. Click OK and click code. Okay, so we're done here, so I'm going to X out. I'm going to go back to my View tab and my coding stripes, and I want to look at my codes that were just recently coded. And you'll notice here are my two test nodes, and my three test nodes, excuse me, and my potential dataset nodes. Now, because I don't want to keep these, I'm going to right click and I'm going to uncode. Right click, uncode, right click, uncode, keep going. And if you go back to my nodes bar, you will see that there are no sources coded. That means we've deleted them all. And that is how you can range code video. Now this comes in handy if you are not working off of a full transcription and you would like to attach segments of video, actual video or audio or a picture to a node. If you have text, the coding is a little bit different. So here I'm going to go back to our sources, and I'm going to close this code, that source, and I'm going to open up a Word document. Just pick any one that I have. I'm going to scroll down. Now, remember in one of our previous podcasts we talked about how important that click to edit was in the video analysis. Click to edit is pretty important here too, but for a different reason. If I click to edit here, I can actually change what is in this source. I am actually manipulating that data source and changing it from its original state. Because this was an artifact that came in, it was a lesson plan, an artifact from a study, and I'm not a part of that study, chances are we don't want researchers to be changing or being able to edit or change the artifact because you're changing its state. So more often than not, you are not going to click the button, click to edit. Just undone the things that I did before. So I'm going to go ahead and click my pencil up here so that I can no longer edit. I can highlight, which means I can code, but I can no longer edit or change the original artifact. So again, that click to edit feature, even more important when you're talking about text. So how do you code text? Actually, it's pretty straightforward. You notice here are your sources. If I want to view my nodes, I can have my nodes up here too, and my data artifact here stays. So if I'm reading along and I decide that I want to code the objective, I highlight it, come down here, and this is our coding bar. So we're telling NVivo, go to your nodes, highlight and code what is highlighted with the node I tell you to. So again, I'm going to go back to my test node. You notice how I started typing, and it gave me all of the different kinds of nodes that I have set up. And then right next to it is a green check mark. I am going to say check. Now, we have coded this data source with test node. But I see here there are 2 sources and 3 references. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to double click on test node because I want to see what else is coded. So this has brought us back to our coding summary page that we talked about in a previous podcast. You'll notice here I have 2 video codes, and here is the text from my text code right here. Our summary tells you 1 video and 1 document have this. Here is the part that was coded, but you can also click here and this will give you the entire lesson plan, the entire source that this was pulled from, and then you've got your video. I'm going to X that out, and that is how you code text. The last thing we're going to talk about is how to create annotations and analytical memos within a text file. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to highlight another piece, and once that's highlighted, I'm going to right click. And the right click button, as we've talked about before, gives you a lot of handy features, but the one we're going to focus on today in our right click menu are links. And you'll notice here there is a memo link. This is where you go if you want to create an analytic memo around the source. There's a See Also link, which is a tag that notes I want to combine 2 sources together. So when I look at one, I look at the other. And then there's an annotation link. Now my annotations, they're my notes, they're my questions, they're kind of it's my in the moment thinking about the source as I'm looking at it. It's sort of like my sticky note that I can put on a hard copy. This is not being coded. This won't show up in your node structures. This is just a way to organize any thoughts or questions in the moment, things that you're working on as you're going through your data set. Think of this as sort of like your pre-analysis or your lower level thinking in a traditional analysis, qualitative or thematic analysis approach. The last thing that I want to note is the hyperlink. If we had highlighted a web address, we could then call that a hyperlink, and we could queue, sorry about that, we could queue NVivo to allow that hyperlink to be part of the source, which is kind of neat. So anyways, annotations. I'm going to highlight, right click, go to links, go to annotation, and new annotation. You'll notice that a new bar down here has popped up. I'm going to call this new test annotation. And what happens is that that section that you have an annotation highlighted and attached to turns another color so that you have a visual representation of where your annotations are. And then finally, I want to highlight all of this. As we've worked in the video analysis podcast before, we talked about creating an analytical memo. So I'm going to highlight our entire source here. I'm going to right click and go to links, memo link, link to new memo. So I'm going to open up our memo, test memo. Click OK. And here we have just created a memo that is attached to this entire source. Each source is allowed to have one memo. This memo is a place to put longer thoughts, more cohesive. You may bring in reference lists or things like that. Maybe you have a table or charts. Again, it's still to help organize your thinking around your data set, but here where the annotation is your sticky note, your analytical memo might be, an outline to a paper or a response to literature, something a little meatier. One thing I want to note, though, is that each source is only allowed to have one memo. So this really is a running tally of all your thoughts about this source. There we go. And those are some beginning analysis techniques that you can use when working in NVivo9.